to Northlands was established in 1879. It was soon followed by the Calgary Exhibition and Stampede, Medicine Hat, Lethbridge, Wetaskiwin, and Olds, all prior to 1900. By 1940, there were 30 agricultural societies, and by 1970, there were 49. During the 1970s, agricultural societies in Alberta expanded their role in rural communities by developing community facilities. This created an influx in registered agricultural societies. So by the end of the 70s, there were 212 agricultural societies. Now, our own Strathmore District Agricultural Society came into existence in June of 1973. Ag societies in Alberta continue to maintain their traditional roles while meeting the needs of the agricultural community. This is done by forming new partnerships with a variety of agricultural and community groups. Presently, there are 295 active agricultural societies in the province. So, what is an agricultural society? What is it that we do out there at our agricultural grounds? According to the Act, agricultural societies are non-profit organizations that encourage improvement in agriculture and in the quality of life of persons living in an agricultural community by developing programs, services, and facilities based on needs in their agricultural community. By this original definition of ag societies, our own Strathmore Ag Society has strived to fulfill this mandate in our community in the past. However, in the past few years, we've identified some major changes that we feel are having a profound effect on the role of the ag society in our community, and is the primary reason that we are here tonight. Without question, the largest undertaking our Ag Society has each year is the Strathmore Heritage Days Stampede. This August-long weekend celebration began many years ago as Strathmore Whooper-Upper Days, and for the most part was simply a gathering together of our community for a little bit of summer fun. An amateur rodeo and pony chuck wagons were the entertainment, along with events like cowboy polo and horse races, etc. Over the years, however, the weekend grew, first with rodeo going to a professional format, and soon afterward the professional chuck wagon races. We have become Alberta's second or third largest sanctioned rodeo and the home of the Dodge Tour Professional Chuck Wagon Racing Finals. Each year, over 30,000 guests attend our show, and we motivate 400 to 500 of our own citizens as volunteers and hosts to these guests. Without a doubt, the economic impact to our local businesses and the community pride that is fostered through our volunteer base is profound. However, along with success, there comes challenges, and we certainly have our share. Let me share with you some of the trends that we've identified. Number one, it's getting harder each year to fill the grandstands. The competition for entertainment dollars has become fierce, and it's been a challenge to provide a show that has something for the whole family. Number two, the legions of rodeo enthusiasts are dwindling. Each year the grandstand seems to become a little bit grayer. We've tried to appeal to a younger crowd by bringing in acts such as the stunt motorcycles, and of course the running of the bulls has been a resounding success. Number three, the budget for our annual show approaches 7 figures. And due to inflation, there are constant demands for increases from the entertainment providers, and on the other side, a reluctance of our guests to accept any further increases to our gate admission. The consequences of this squeeze are that our margins are becoming so tight that any kind of a glitch, such as bad weather, threatens the very future of the show itself. Number four, it is getting increasingly difficult to provide peripheral entertainment to the rodeo. As an example, this year we were not able to secure a midway for the weekend. And last, number five, with the downturn in the economy, it has been more difficult to obtain sponsorship monies. With these issues bearing down on us, we have decided to reduce our 2012 event to 4 days from the previous 5, and we've been looking at all aspects of the show to try and trim expenses. We've also begun discussions about the future format of Strathmore Heritage Days Rodeo beyond 2012. As I read earlier in the history and mission statement of the agricultural societies, the focus of Ag Societies was originally to foster and promote agriculture in the community. It has been our experience over the last 10 to 20 years that our community has increasingly looked to the Ag Society to provide facilities for recreation. This subtle change over the years has caused us to begin to rethink the future of the Ag Society and our community and what our role should be. This concern was presented informally to Alberta's Agriculture Minister, the Honourable Evan Berger, at a meeting at the County Wheatland Boardroom just a few weeks ago. And just to elaborate on that, Arno Dirksen had informed me that they were, him and a couple of the ministers were going to be touring through, and there was going to be a short meeting out at the county office. So I thought it was going to be a bit of a meet and greet, so I showed up for it, and it turned out to be somewhat of a formal gathering in the council chambers. And so after a lot of the presentations, I wasn't prepared to make a presentation, but Arno asked me if I had anything to bring forward. So I asked the minister, Minister Berger, I said, the Ag Society has been trying to get to the next echelon of shows so that we can access, more of the grant monies that are available at the province, but we just haven't been able to climb that hill. There's certain parameters that you have to set, stock shows and bench shows and all the rest of it. So as soon as I made mention of it, he immediately picked up on it. He said, we acknowledge there's a problem here with these Ag Societies. Some Ag Societies do absolutely nothing. He said others, and he said, we're very aware of your Ag Society. He said, you're very active and very much an asset to your community. So he was quite encouraging. He said, by all means, bring something to me. He said, we are looking at the whole agricultural society thing and what your role in the community is. So presently, our staff and some of the board members have gotten together and we're trying to put together a package, and we would like to go up and sit with the minister and give him some of our our wish list or what we'd like to see done. And just so I don't forget, one of the reasons that we're here and one of the things that we need from town council, we need your support from that standpoint. We need to show that the community as a whole is behind the Agricultural Society and behind this weekend and support us in that way. So in summary, change is inevitable. It has its positives and it has its negatives. But most importantly, it must be recognized and dealt with. We, the board of the Strathmore District Agricultural Society, are looking to the future. And tonight, we are serving notice to our community and the many interest groups in our town that we want their input to help us determine what direction we're going to take. The challenges we face will have an impact on our town and our community. Whether or not that impact will be for the good or not is entirely up to the participation of those involved. We'd like to thank Town Council for their support in the past, and we look forward to your input and support continuing on into the future. So with that, if you have any questions, any response?
Councillor, when's the meeting with the minister going to take place?
We haven't set up anything as yet, and I will add to this as well that tonight we want this considered to be a launch for us. We want to hold a community meeting. We want to get as many of the stakeholders involved. We have a lot of people that use the grounds up there, and we want to bring them in. We need ideas. We need people to come out and show their support for the Ag Society. And I guess our attitude is that we're going to hold public meeting, and we want to see who's behind us. If nobody shows up, I guess we know we're swinging in the wind. But hopefully, we'd love to see the hall packed. We're still debating on whether or not we should offer free beer or not. And we would like to get people out to it.
Grant, I think you charge $2 for a beer, you break even anyway. I find myself kind of a new kid in town here. I've been here for 12 years now, and maybe I'm not so new, but I think it's very important that somehow we find a way to keep this thing going. In the summertime, to me, it would be one long, dry, hot summer. That's the only thing we look forward to is this long weekend. And I'm just about thinking I can speak on behalf of council here to a certain extent that I'm sure we'll get behind you and do what we can here to somehow figure a way out of this mess and get it going in the right direction.
Well, if I may respond, we want the community, we want you to come away from this not with a negative but with a positive. We've recognized that the dynamics of what's going on up there have changed. The show this year is going on no matter what, and we'll keep putting on shows as long as we can. But what we've identified is the show has to change, the weekend has to change, and we've sat down as a board and we've bashed around all kinds of wild ideas to get, we've got a generational change going on here too. So how do you get the young people out? How do you draw people in? And we need input. We need some ideas.
I think your young people go up to camera. That's what the biggest problem is.
Yeah.
It's the same weekend.
Well, we just need bigger performers or something. I don't know.
Councilor Best?
First of all, thank you for an excellent presentation tonight. It was enlightening. Secondly, I can't speak for the rest of the council, but I certainly am behind the Ag Society, and I would like to know when your meetings are and when you are going up to see Minister Berger. Other than that, Grant, I think you guys do an excellent job, and it's a bonus for our town to have you doing that.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Grant. And I know you didn't come here with a request for anything, but at the very least, I'd like to make a motion in this regard. And I would move that council indicate support for the Strathmore Agricultural Society, and that steps be taken to demonstrate that support to the government of Alberta, either in person or in writing.
Also, please don't misunderstand me. If you do want to give us money, we're wide open to that too.
I just want to make sure there's something in place here that tells you and your group that we're behind you, and that we do want to get involved in supporting you, and not just by telling you that we're supporting you, that we want to step up to the plate on this. That's the purpose of my motion, Your Worship.
Any further discussion? Okay, I'll do the motion. All in favor? Carried.
Don't forget some lunch here, right?
Yeah, for sure. That's one of our stumbling blocks, actually. Anyway, well, thank you very much.
Thanks again. Thank you to you and your board.
26 bylaws, no bylaws or old business, we'll go right to new business. Eight point one, time extension request for subdivision 10/F-006. Tammy?
Your Worship and Councillors, pursuant to the Municipal Government Act, Section 657.6, The applicant has requested a time extension for subdivision endorsement. Basically, what that means is that they are unable to meet all the conditions of the subdivision within the 1-year time period, and so the request is to council to extend it. The applicant has requested the extension until the end of this year, and the recommendation from staff is that council provide extension of subdivision 10-S-006 to the prescribed date of December 31st, 2012, so that we can assist them to complete the conditions.
Does council have any questions on this item?
Question to the chair, to Tammy. Does the developer feel that this extension will be enough? It'll be good to go to December 31st, 2012, and everything will be fine after that?
Yes, otherwise they could have asked for a little bit longer because it was actually approved in March. So they could have asked for March 2013, but December 31st was sufficient for them.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, councilors?
I move that council provide extension of subdivision 10/S-006 to the prescribed date of December 31st, 2012.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion? Carried. Eight point two, names advisory committee recommendations on 2 requests. Stand again.
Here we go. We actually received 3 requests, however, one of them was dealt with administratively because it had to be mostly clarification of an existing renaming of the road. So that's why there's only 2 requests for approval for.
Excuse me, Your Worship, could I just ask you a question? Tammy, in our minutes, in our background notes, it says there was a letter regarding East Lake Road name being changed to Archie Clyber Trail. Is that East Ridge Road?
That's correct.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thanks.
And that was the last one that we dealt with administratively, sorry. The first request is for a community name of Grandview Gardens for the area that is in the northeast corner of town, and I'll just point it out in the map, which is right here. They proposed an initial name, and the Names Advisory Committee had requested that they submit another name, and the second submission is Grandview Gardens. The Names Advisory Committee had recommended that Grandview Gardens be submitted as the community name for that request. The second request was to either rename or for consideration of the names of Carl D. Sorensen or Soren C. Sorensen. The discussion with respect to the committee was to not propose both of them, but to have the Sorensen family name be placed on the names reserve list, and that is their recommendation. So therefore, our recommendation, as posed by the Names Advisory Council, is first that council accept the community name of Grandview Gardens for the part of the Southwest 25-24-25, and for the second request that council add the family name of Sorensen to the names reserve list.
Thank you, Tammy. Does council have any discussion or questions on the proposed street names and addition of the family name Sorensen to the names reserve list? Councilor Soldier?
I'm sorry, are you just dealing with the Sorensen name, Your Worship, or the Grandview Estates? Grandview Gardens. I do have a question in regards to the Grandview Gardens. We have a committee in place to come up with these and recommend these names, and as my policy is not to muck around with that. The only issue I ever have in regards to this question that comes up, in my opinion, is in regards to safety. And I'm a little concerned that the only safety valve we have, safety valve that we have here is in regards to Chief Mayor and the emergency services. And I read here that they've not responded, and therefore I'm assuming that the committee's assuming that they're not objecting, but I really would feel a lot more comfortable if the emergency services approved this, although they are not a voting member. That's my only concern when it comes to naming of these subdivisions, is whether or not this is going to create an issue with our emergency services.
Yeah, I just wanted to make note that Grandview wasn't named just pulled out of a hat exactly like, there's many towns who have Grandview. This actually was, they went out and stood on the land and looked around and decided that it really was a Grandview. And that's where the name came from. Myself, I have spoken to Mira on this, and he has no problem with that area whatsoever.
Thank you.
As far as the name Sorensen, that's not a problem.
Any further discussion or questions, Councillor Field?
My only comment actually follows on the heels of Councillor Sobel, and that is I have a little bit of worry as far as names that are similar and in different areas. We have Grand Point Estates and now we have Grandview, so I always worry a little bit about confusion as far as going between areas. So that's my concern about the name of Grandview, that it's a bit similar to Grand Point Estates and yet it's far away on the other part of town. I'd hate to have confusion as far as emergency vehicles heading somewhere and someone getting mixed up as to where they're actually going.
I think you can read them out.
At least in the same.
Nobody asked for sarcasm.
At least in the same area.
Anything else, Council?
Your worship, I move that council adopt the community name of Grandview Gardens for part of Southwest 25, 24, 25.
You all heard the motion, all in favor? What do we got here? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 in favor, any opposed?
You gotta hold up to it.
Carried.
We're entitled to one.
Okay, I'm looking for a
Your
second
worship, I
motion.
would move the council add the family name of Sorensen to the names reserved list.
You all heard the motion, all in favor? Carried. Okay. 8.2, boring bylaw number 12-01. Now, page 29.
Good evening, Your Worship, Councilors. Included in the budget that was passed in December was the provision for borrowing for the potable water reservoir. The amount to be borrowed was $3,120,000. The project is for $9 million, capital reserves of $2,933,000, grants of $2,946,000, and the balance to be borrowed at $3,120,000. Anticipated this amount would be borrowed in June from the Alberta Capital Finance Authority. Their present indicative rates that are posted on their website is for a 15-year term at 2.663%. Fixed rate for the entire 15-year term. With this borrowing, it would increase the town utilization of the debt limit to 66.6%.
Does council have any questions for Mel? question, Mel, I don't know, I should be asking you or should I be asking Justin, is this $9 million figure set down on paper or is it just a roundabout figure here or what do we have on this?
It's an estimated
Estimated?
figure. We have issued tenders for the project, and that they'll be opening or closing on what date? March 12th.
So there's a chance they could be lower,
Yes, could be.
also a chance they could be higher.
That's correct.
Councillor Hill?
Question through the chair to Jesse. Again, just to clarify, as far as the public's concerned, this reservoir is designed to also give us more days of emergency water for the town.
That's correct.
And it also has to do with the work that may be needed to be done on the Brentwood Reservoir?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Dustin?
Your worship, I'm a little concerned with the fact that we could have a floating figure here and that what we're doing is approving this tonight rather than waiting to find out what that figure actually is. Myself, I would much prefer to wait until after March the 12th to find out what the figure is that we're approving for borrowing. And in that case, I would not be voting for this tonight.
Councillor Hamilton?
If we do wait till March the 12th, is this going to affect the figure amount? Like the 3.12 million, or if, like Councilor was saying, it could come in lower? Is there a detriment to waiting till the 12th of March?
We are not obligated to borrow the full amount. We could borrow up to that amount.
What happens if it's higher?
We would have to pass a supplementary borrowing bylaw.
So if all the tenders come in, say,
5 million more or whatever.
well, let's say they all come in at 10 million, so we're gonna be looking for another $1 million.
We would either have to find the additional funds from reserves, borrowing, or grants. If the project was to proceed. Borrowing is not the only option here. For the addition.
Any other questions for Matt?
I guess the only thing I would make note of is that this is first reading. This is not a vote. This is not passing this motion. It's a first reading in order to have this advertised, at which time it would come back to council.
For a second.
Yes, and that's in probably, which meeting would that be in?
It would not be
So it would come back in April. So at that time, when it comes back, we would know how much this is going to cost us.
correct.
This is basically just to get the process started with public hearings and information received from the public in regards to this bylaw.
Correct.
In that case, Your Worship, I would move that the council give first reading to bylaw 12-01.
Okay, any further discussion? You've all heard the motion, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Eight point four, 2011 capital project funding amendment. No.
Your Worship, in the 2011 budget, there were a number of projects that we have either spent slightly more on or have rearranged grants and reserves, or there has not been any funding approved on certain projects that were approved during the year. There's a list in front of you, and we could discuss each one individually if you like, or if you would like to just ask questions. You entertain questions on each of them. For instance, the Town Hall. There have been some design work expended in 2010. Most of it, in fact, was in 2010. And there was some expenditures made that carried over into 2011. In the case of the land purchase, $1,750,000 had been identified to purchase the particular property near Kinsman Lake, and then there were certain legal costs and disbursements over and above that, and so on. In the case of Ridge Road, it had not been included in the original budget. However, council did approve the project, and we've identified that we can fund this project completely out of grants. We're looking for a motion to identify the funding on this project as outlined.
Does council have any further questions on funding reallocations?
Just a quick question, Your Worship. The skateboard park one, is that because there was a slight deficiency as far as the budget from the previous year as far as building the skateboard park?
There were improvements made, the lighting and the cameras.
Anything else, council?
Your Worship, I would move that council adopt the changes and approve the funding sources for the 2011 capital projects as identified.
Any further discussion? You've all heard the motion, all in favor? Carried. Thanks, Mel.
Thanks, Mel.
8.5 is deleted. 8.6, memorandum of understanding, joint emergency operating center. I'd like to ask administration for report.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a memorandum of understanding for a joint emergency operating center between the town of Strathmore and Wheatland County. It is for a 3-year term, and basically the agreement is for where a requesting party may request assistance from the supplying party as a result of a disaster or an emergency situation. And this would be where the requesting party cannot activate its own emergency operations center. And then provided that the supplying party has not activated its own emergency operations center, then we would work with Wheatland County with the provision of that center. There's also a limitation clause in here where the supplying party can, in its absolute discretion, refuse to render assistance or whatever circumstance that may come up. And just for council's information, this agreement has already gone before Wheatland County Council and has been approved.
Okay, does council have any questions for Linda? Councilor, yes?
Through the chair, is WFCSS aware of this as well?
It's not the reception center, Your Worship, it's the emergency operations center.
Any other questions?
Just quick comment, anything that gets rid of some of the red tape, especially in an emergency situation, is certainly welcome. And I certainly have, I recommend and commend both towns, the town and the county, for putting this together. It's a great idea.
Okay, I have a motion
Your worship, I would move that council approve the memorandum of understanding for a joint emergency operating center between the towns of Strathmore and Wheatland County for a term of 3 years.
You heard the motion, any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Number 9, administration. Seeing nothing from administration and no committee reports, we will go directly to item number 11. Questions between councilors or to administration. Does council have any questions between council or for administration? Nothing? 12, council invitations. 12.1, freedom to read week, page 51. Is there any discussion from council on this item?
Your worship, I would move that council proclaim that February 26, 2012 to March 3rd, 2012 be declared Freedom to Read Week in Strathmore.
I heard the motion, any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Any further discussion? All in favor? Adjourned.